Go.
All right, so welcome to the inaugural episode of Professor Matt is Drunk. And so we're going to do this lecture, which is about a topic we pre-selected before in the earlier video at 6:30, which was Nicholas II, the last Russian emperor, the last Tsar of Russia. And so I've had a couple glasses of wine. I'm going to keep having wine. It's hard to take it down. I'm sorry. I'm just going. Sun's going down. Sun's going down, big guy. Sun's going down. So, my lovely and talented assistant Dara, we need to get you one of the sequined outfits with the spangle on it. Yeah, no, it's gonna be great. But she's manning the comments, and so if you have a question you're watching, just pop on, and she will ask me, and I will try to answer questions about it. Right. So I also want to take a moment to thank our corporate sponsor, who is Brittany McCall, who sent us money, which paid for this wine. And I mean, like maybe some of the tripod and stuff that I don't know. But she gave us some money, so it's like we should probably give her like a shout out or whatever. It's fine. So good. All right, so what the topic we picked was Nicholas II. So do we have a bunch of people? Is anybody watching?
Yeah, 5 people.
Oh, 5 people. Who's watching? Tell me who's watching.
Stephanie's the only one who said hi. If you're watching, go ahead and say hi in the comments so that I can tell Matt that you're watching.
Hey, Stephanie, what's up? It's good to see you.
Brittany's there.
Brittany, what's up, Brittany? And I know Brittany's got like Ben and people with her in the house. What's up? Who is watching? I mean, there's 2 people.
It says there's 7 now.
So okay, it's just exciting to know. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about Nicholas II. Right. So Nicholas II is the last Russian emperor, right? And yeah, baby, come on, yeah, is the last Russian emperor. And so he was born in the 19th century, and he died in 1918. And his death ended the Russian imperial house, right? And so he is, in many respects, this kind of like important figure who is this. You got to sort of learn about him, or whatever. But I've always found that the number one quality he has is he is a giant fucking douchebag. And it's just like, you don't want to judge people. And what?
Warning. Apparently, Matt, when he gets drunk, drops lots of expletives. If you have children in the room, I'm sorry. Ours are used to hearing it.
I mean, if you ask Stephanie, she knows that I do it in class anyway. She knows that I do it.
You just mentioned that Dan was watching.
My bad. My bad. I'll try to, but I
PG-13.
PG-2?
How many are
Damn.
that?
This MPAA is some BS. I'm going to tell you that right now. Okay, so let me have some.
That makes me
And so,
go away.
like, the problem with Nicholas is that he's just such a moron, and you look back at his life, and it is so kind of avoidable because he's so stupid. So anyway, let's talk about it. So you got this Russian Empire, right? It's this big empire, but the Russians have kind of always felt like they are the poor man out in Europe, right? It's like you have a family reunion and everybody shows up, and the Germans are all like, look at our military and our mustaches. And the French are like, oh, baguettes and poetry. And the British are like, what about Shakespeare? And the Russians are like, oh, we're, like we're cool too, or whatever. And everybody's like, yeah, sure, whatever. You're the dirty uncle that nobody likes, and we don't want to like talk about you. And when you're not here, we also like gossip about you, whatever. They have this massive kind of inferiority complex about their entire culture and civilization, right? And so Nicholas's grandfather had actually attempted to improve stuff in Russia. He had freed the serfs and ended basically slavery. And it was like great. And there was liberalization in Russia, and it was the 19th century, and we're going to go into the future. And then what happened is the anarchists, they blew him up. They put a bomb in his carriage, and it blew him into pieces, and he died. And his kid, who is Nicholas's dad, actually watched them drag his body into the church, and he like bled all over the place. And then they brought in his boot. The Cossacks came in with his foot in the shoe in the boot, and it was like blood everywhere. Yeah.
Anila wants to know, was Russia inherently backwards? Not that it says yes.
Yeah, it was. Like the economy of Russia, the Industrial Revolution and stuff didn't really hit Russia. And the big thing is that when the Enlightenment happened in Europe and the Napoleonic Wars happened, a lot of Napoleon, like when he conquered countries, he took the Enlightenment to those countries, right? The French soldiers did the Code Napoleon, and they kind of brought those ideas with, and it didn't happen in Russia. And so the Russians, like the officers in the army, they saw this. They went to France and they saw that people lived better, were more productive, and it worked. Everything was better. But in Russia, it was like a deep freeze. It didn't happen. And so there was this it's a way it's like the internet today, where more than ever today, if you're a poor person, you know that rich people have it better than you because you see it on the TV and stuff. And you like back and like your grandparents say like, oh, when everybody was kind of poor, like we didn't know. And the Russians had that kind of envy. Like the educated Russians, they knew that other countries worked better than their crap ass country, and they just like it was like, why can't we be, like I don't know, not France, but like Poland or whatever? And the emperors in Russia were like, no, we don't do that, right? Because when Alexander II, Nicholas's grandfather, died, Alexander III took over, and he was like, look, I'm gonna be real with you guys. It was my dad's weakness and change that led him to get blown up. Right? You give the anarchists a minute and you give people freedom and they blow you up. And so he was like, forget it. We're done with this crap. And so he clamped down even more. And so when Nicholas was a little boy, his dad was like this overbearing guy who was like this big ogre who was like political freedom. We can't have it. We can't change anything. We gotta focus everything on the monarchy. And at the same time, he was like, Nicholas was this shy, like little kid, and his dad was like this big ogre of a guy. And he developed this he would cry a lot, and he was super unsure of himself, and he was like he couldn't make decisions and stuff. So I mean, this is the guy that runs the biggest empire in the world, the Russian Empire, right? So when he becomes emperor, so first we got to talk about in Russia, it was the one real autocracy in Europe. Like the emperor really had all the power. Like he really could just do anything he wanted. And remember, if you have a question or something, just shout it out, and Dara's gonna ask me.
I'm waiting for you to have a pause so I can read some of these.
No, re-question.
Okay, so Heather wants to know when he reigned.
He became the emperor in the early, I'll say it's like the late 1900s, late 19th century, like the late 1800s, and he ruled until 1917, and he died in 1918. And so he was emperor for a while before World War I.
Evan wants to know if it's going to help him with Jeopardy, and I feel like yes, it will because you kicked his butt in Jeopardy last week. Yup. Adila says, "Can you talk about Mickey prior to 1900? Because no one ever does."
I kind of did.
Said, to be honest, she says, "Oh, true. To be honest, I brave the Decembrists." Olivia, stay out of the camera.
Okay. Yeah. The Decembrists are the Napoleonic army revolutionaries who they helped to overthrow Napoleon. My boy Napoleon Bonaparte on my shirt here. This is Napoleon. Napoleon he's my energy that I'm taking into 2021. He conquered every country and took all the wine and drank it, and he loved somebody who totally cheated on him a million times with a guy that was way uglier than him. But it didn't matter because he was the emperor of the whole world, and it was fine until it wasn't fine. But whatever. And the Decembrists were the Napoleonic officers who revolted against they were the Russian army guys who defeated Napoleon, but they saw France and they saw it, and they took all the French Revolution and Enlightenment back to Russia, and they revolted in the early 19th century, and they got crushed. But there was like this point where they were like, we were trying to do a constitution for Russia, and it didn't work. It was like 1815 or whatever, and they just got annihilated. And the band, the Decembrists, is named for them, but the band totally sucks because it's not thrash metal, which is what the good music is. Yeah.
So Stephanie also commented on Russian.
You kind of, yeah.
If he hates pugs.
I mean, probably he does because everything that you like, Nicholas hates because he's a jerk, and I hate him.
And then Brittany wants to know when this takes place in reference to Anastasia.
Anastasia is Nicholas's fourth daughter, so we're going to talk about Anastasia. You're on it. They have 5 kids, and she's the fourth daughter. We got toddlers in the back. They're kids. They're just being kids, whatever. And so, what's up? Give me thumbs up. All right, I got a cheering section. And so, when Nicholas becomes Tsar, right, Russia is kind of at this like major transition point because it's the early 20s, it's like the late 19th century, early 20th century, and I didn't look up the dates and I'm totally drunk, so it's fine. But like Nicholas inherits from his dad, and the thing again you have to remember is like if you look at like the American president or like the French prime minister or whatever, they don't make all the decisions. They don't have to do everything themselves. There's like a bunch of other people in the government. They hire people. The Russian Tsar. The emperor, remember the Tsar, by the way, this is my favorite fact. The Tsar was named in 1613 by the Tsar Mikhail, who was the first Romanov Tsar. That's the royal house of the Russian dynasty. And he was called Tsar, and the name Tsar comes from Julius Caesar. It's the Russianization of the name Caesar, because the Germans did the same thing. Their emperor Wilhelm is called the Kaiser, which is the same thing. Because if you need a badass name, you obviously it's Julius Caesar all the way 100%. And so that's what the Tsar is called Tsar. But the Russian Tsar really was the whole government. He appointed the ministers, he hired and fired them. There was no oversight, there's no check. He did whatever he wanted. So if you're Nicholas, it's like, okay, hey, you're the Tsar now. It's like it's you. You're it. And he had no clue what he was doing. And he was unable to ask for help. He was fundamentally unable to ask. And the most important element of his life you got to talk about is his wife. His wife her name is Alexandra. And Alexandra, her character was kind of inevitably marked by her grandmother, who was Queen Victoria of England. Okay, cheers. Just drinks. And so Queen Victoria, the old girl, you're doing good. You're good. There's a film you can watch on YouTube of Queen Victoria and her Diamond Jubilee, and it's this really primitive film. And she goes down the street, and somebody shouts like, "You did good, you old girl!" And all the British people are like, "Yeah!" Because that's just like so British. It's so British, right? Whatever. And so Queen Victoria, she ruled England for a long time in the 19th century, and it was like a really big century. There was a lot of stuff going on, the empire and the war in India and stuff. And she was pretty good, but she failed it like in a couple of key elements. She was a really shitty mom because her son Albert was a real like douche nozzle. He was just a big like fat womanizer who was drunk and gambled all the time and was an idiot. But anyway, she had a bunch of kids, and she set up the strategy of I threw the cup in the sink with the ice. It's gone. It's gone. No, it's gone. I'm sorry. And so. No, it's right there. Yeah, it's right there. Okay. And so, anyway, she had all these kids, right? And she married all the kids to other royal houses in Europe, and sort of set up this network whereby the British were related to all the royal houses. And so her daughter married the German emperor, and the Kaiser of Germany in World War I is her grandson. For real. Anytime. Nobody's waiting. We're all waiting. It's fine. Can you guys? Hey, just come on. All right. So I'm sorry. It's total chaos. I don't care anyway. I'm drunk. So, Victoria had a daughter who married the Prince of Hesse in Germany, and their daughter was Nicholas's wife. Her name was Alexandra, and Alexandra was a stone cold bitch. All right. You know what she was? She was a total fucking Karen. I'm sorry, Karen Lee. I love you, and you're the best. But she was a Karen, and and so she was okay. So she converted to Russian Orthodoxy, but she was like hysterical about it. Like she wasn't just like, oh sure, I'm the Queen of Russia. I married the Crown Prince or whatever in like 1890 or whatever. I got to convert to the local religion. She embraced it with this ridiculousness. Am I right? And then on top of that, she was just a complete idiot, right? And so when Nicholas gets married, it turns out that he has special quality, cannot make a decision, right? Like he can't make a decision. And 90% of the decisions in the marriage was made by his wife. And if you're just some guy, you're just Phil or some whatever, who cares if your wife calls the shots? Fine, whatever. You're the passive partner, but like Nicholas is the emperor of Russia. Like you're in charge, right? And everybody knew that the wife was the one that was for real. We're gonna it's Ryan Toy's review. It's my life. And so can you hear? Is it loud on the thing? Okay, then it's for just bugging me. I don't care. So everybody knew that Alexandra was the one like calling the shots, and okay, so like 2020, the stereotype of the henpecked husband is kind of sexist, and it's like, oh, he doesn't have any balls, his wife wears the pants, or who gives a shit, whatever. But in like 1900, it was a big deal, right? It was like a big deal that Nicholas was sort of known to be like an idiot, right? And she was this nutcase, and there's this whole idea that Nicholas loved that the Russians didn't need democracy because they had a magical connection to the emperor, and the emperor just knew what they wanted. So I don't need opinion polling. I just know what the peasants want, and it flows to me. And she wrote to her grandmother, Queen Victoria, and was like, "Oh, we don't need democracy in Russia because the peasants are all so stupid, and we just, tell them what they just whatever." And she like believed it. She believed that there was a magical energy field, which is not the force, which guides the Russian peasants' intentions to the Tsar, so he just instinctively knows what to do. She believed this shit. She wrote in letters about this, and it's like, what the fuck is your problem? That's two, but we're gonna. I don't even I don't remember. So and
and then Anila wants Anila or Anila.
Anila, I think.
She wants to
Yeah.
talk about Rasputin.
Yeah, no, we're gonna talk about Rasputin because he has a wart on his penis.
And then Chris Miller says Nicholas II was controlled by a sensible.
I mean, if he was, he probably would have been better at his freaking job.
Which
I mean, Darth City. Darth City. I mean, brought down a republic. I mean, to be totally fair, Nicholas brought down a different kind of government too, and replaced it with something way worse, a lot like Darth Sidious. Am I right? And so everybody kind of knew in the upper class that Nicholas was like this complete non-entity, right? And I'll give you a good example. When he needed to go for a drive, he used to write a card. He didn't call. He would go to his stationery and he would get a card and he would get his pen and he would write, "Please may the chauffeur summon a car for me at 3 p.m. I would like to take a ride." And he would call somebody and be like, "Can you take this down to the chauffeur?" And it's like, dude, first of all, a phone. Have you heard of a phone? But also, like, you could just call somebody like, "Hey, can you give me a car at 3 p.m.?" And they'd be like, "Of course, Your Majesty, no big deal, whatever you want. Sure, of course." And it was like, that's it. It's 2 seconds. It's 2 seconds. But instead, Nicholas would get the pen and then write it out in calligraphy. And he was one of those people that cannot make big decisions. So he spends all his time making the stupid little decisions. They don't fucking matter. That you just have people for that. Yeah, whatever. And so if you're Jeff Bezos, you don't need to make little decisions. You hire people to do that, and they just come to you like, "Okay, we made all the little decisions, sir. This is the big this is the big choice. You have to make the big choice." And Nicholas just was fundamentally incapable of doing it. So Alexandra would do a lot of this for him, and the Russians ended up hating him. The lower classes hated that there was no economic reform, and the upper classes hated that Nicholas was so stupid, and the middle class hated that they were educated enough to know that Europeans in the rest of Europe got political rights. Like German people and like French people voted, and they voted and stuff. And Russia, nobody voted for crap, and they knew it. And it was like that envy, like today, like on the internet, where you know exactly how rich people live because we watch the tabloids. Right? And in Russia, everybody was like, "Oh, well, what's the difference between me and a German guy?" Well, nothing, except the German guy votes for stuff, and I basically, the Tsar tells me what to do, because apparently in the Middle Ages it was that way or whatever. And so Nicholas was sort of this kind of like figure of fun, right? And everybody hated his wife. There was a great story. They went into the Tauride Palace where they lived, and they went into the Tauride Palace and they got rid of all the furniture. And they replaced the furniture with department store furniture from this British department store, Harrods. And today, Harrods is like super nice. But in the 19th century, the 20th century, early 20th century, it was like if the president moved into the White House and they threw out all of the furniture and replaced it with like IKEA furniture. Yeah, what's that? Yeah, exactly, like Roots to Go. And they were like, "Well, it's Roots to Go. It's really good, right?" And it's like the Resolute desk that was given to like the 19th century president of Queen Victoria. You're gonna throw it out and replace it with, and you're gonna get a print from Prince.com, and you're gonna replace like Washington crossing the Delaware with this crap. And everybody in Russia, remember, they had this inferiority complex. And so it's like, "Oh, Russian stuff isn't good enough for you. You got to replace it with this." And so Alexandra was like immune to this stuff. She had no sense that she was dumb. She had no sense that she went to the theater one time, and they go to the ballet, and it's Swan Lake, and it's for real. It's Russia. It's Swan Lake. This is real. And she never went in public. She didn't go to public. Imagine being the Empress of Russia and not going in public. Like your only freaking job is to go in public. I didn't F-bar. And so she goes and she sits in the box in the center of the stage, and everybody is like, "Oh, the Empress is here." And then in the middle of the first act, she gets up and leaves, and everybody goes, and they all hiss at her as she leaves, which is like unheard of, right? But like she couldn't even be bothered to pretend that she cared about any of this crap, right? And so they had 5 kids. They had 5 kids, and then somebody asked about Anastasia. Who asked about Anastasia? It's pretty. They had 5 kids. They had 4 daughters. The daughters were Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia. And they knew them because they called them Otma as a joke. The group of them were Otma: Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia. And remember, Dara, we had a cat. It was Tatiana Romanov, was our sweet little cat. who was a drooly McDrooly face and was just used to sleep on your leg at night. There's a picture of Tatiana over there, and so Tatiana, our cat, was named for Tatiana Romanov, and so I'm bringing it back. The girls were actually okay. They kind of raised them to be sort of like not like super dumb rich kids, right? They give them allowances and stuff, and they like they like tried to make them normal, and they didn't live them in this life of luxury. And you get it. Like Bill Gates has said that he wants to give all his money away so his kids don't grow up super wealthy, because he said I think that growing up with like unlimited money is like the worst thing you can do to a kid, because they have no idea what like life is like. And they kind of did a little bit of that. But the fifth kid was Alexei. Alexei was the Tsarevich, the only son, the heir to the throne, and Alexei had hemophilia. Alexei had hemophilia. And hemophilia is a genetic condition that is characterized by the inability of your blood to clot. And so when a hemophilia, holy shit, I had this whole bottle of wine. Whatever, it's fine. It's good, it's fine. This is fine. Drinks, drinks. And so Alexei had a hemophilia, and when hemophilia, you have this thing where whoa, somebody's opening the champagne. It's getting live. And so when you're hemophiliac, when you get like a cut on your arm, it would just bleed. But that's cool because you can put pressure on it and it'll stop. It'll make the clotting happen artificially. But when a hemophiliac, when you have a hemophiliac, you can handle it, right? Like normal person, if you get a cut on your arm, it just bleeds and it stops. It's no big deal, right? I skinned my knuckles the other day, and within an hour, it was not even a thing, right? Within 5 minutes, whatever. But a hemophiliac would bleed for a while, but you can put pressure on it, right? But for a hemophiliac, the dangerous thing is if you fall down, you get a bruise. The bruise is subcutaneous bleeding. It's bleeding in your body. The bleeding will just not stop. You can't stop it. And so Alexandra reacted psychologically to this by becoming overprotective of her son. Her son is about to be the Russian emperor. He's going to be one of the most important people on the planet. He's responsible for running this entire empire by himself, and she doesn't let him like go out of her sight. And there's a great historian, Robert Massey. He died last year. He wrote some really good books. He had a hemophiliac son, and his son actually was involved in AIDS research because he had asymptomatic AIDS, because he caught AIDS from a blood transfusion because he's a hemophiliac in the 80s. And he let himself be poked for decades by needles to learn about AIDS. And it's really cool. His name is Robert Kinslock Massey, was the son. Robert Massey was a historian. He's a great story. He was really tragic when he died because he wrote some of the best books. And he wrote about this. He said, I wanted to write about another family that had a hemophiliac kid. And so this was like the most famous hemophiliac in history. And so Alexander kind of wrapped Alexei in this cocooning embrace, right? If she could prevent him from facing harm, then it would be okay. It would be okay. And what she did is she raised this kid who was this total rebel, right? You know what they say about the preacher's daughter? You know, the preacher has these strict rules for the kid, and so the daughter is a total rebel and sneaks out and stuff. It was the same thing. You wrap Alexei in cushions, and at night he sneaks out to get hammered because he's got to rebel, right? And so this is the new Russian emperor. I mean, this guy's going to be freaking great because he's totally not drinking schnapps in the alley with whatever. And so in the middle of this comes somebody asked about Rasputin, right? Is there more questions? What does it mean, Nicholas? Yeah. Is Russia not your thing?
Well, Evan asked how Black Widow is.
Black Widow's Soviet Union. So, there is some continuity with the intelligence services and the Chekists, and what's his name, Felix Dzerzhinsky. Yeah. Yeah. So I can't feel my nose. It's great. And so
Yes, Chris Miller tells you that you're not allowed to have any more Romulan.
Romulan ale. It's good. It's blue. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. Bones told me it was good. So remember, if there's questions, shout them to Dara. She's gonna hit you up. So having said that, so like you got this really weird family dynamic, and into this comes this guy, Rasputin, right? And Rasputin is this monk from like the woods in Russia. And remember, Russia is like this giant freaking country that goes from the Polish border to Japan, right? And there's all these weird religious people in Russia. Because remember, back in the 1600s, Peter the Great changed some stuff about the Russian Orthodox Church. It was super minor. But a lot of people were like, yeah, whatever, fine. We do the sign of the cross with 3 fingers or 2 fingers. I don't care, whatever. It's fine. But some people were like, look, if you tell me I got to do the sign of the cross with 3 fingers, forget you. I don't want to go to hell. And they disappeared. They called them the old believers. And so there's this whole tradition in Russia of religious people who were kind of like from the wilderness, like pure people. And so Rasputin is this dude. He comes to this little village in Russia. He went to the Holy Land, he says. Oh my God, he went to Jerusalem. Holy shit. And he comes into Moscow and he tells the Tsarina, Alexandra, that he can treat Alexei's hemophilia. He can treat it. He knows how to solve it. And so Alexei has a bleeding episode and he's going to die and he's bleeding and he's getting this bruise that won't go away and his chest cavity is filling with blood and the blood is pushing on his lungs and he can't breathe. And Rasputin can stop it and he can do it. And my authority for this, I talked to my dad a lot, who is a doctor, and he says this is for real, this is legit. He says that Rasputin could hypnotize Alexei. And when you hypnotize somebody, with hemophiliac, a bleeding episode will stop. They fall down, they get a bruise, and when you get a bruise, it's like blood vessels under your skin break, and you get the black is the blood, and it turns yellow because your spleen is absorbing it. And Alexei would have a bleeding episode, and Rasputin could hypnotize him, and it would work. So I mean, this guy immediately is legit because he can provide Anastasia, Alexandra, whatever she wants. He can cure her son. And so immediately, this dude with calluses on his fingers and the crazy hair and the crazy eyes from the woods in Russia is the most powerful man in Russia because he tells the queen he gives her what she wants, and she tells the king, give this guy whatever he wants. Yeah.
Aaron wants to know if the only difference really is just based on where they come from.
No, it's totally. Oh my God, Orthodox Christianity is crazy. So in Orthodox Christianity, if you're a saint, you're called a passion bearer because your death is similar to Jesus in that you bear some of his passion. And the priests get married and they have beards and they wear cassocks and the mass is totally different. It's all day. You go all day. But so I'm the priest. I'll say mass for like 12 hours, and you just come and you stay for one full cycle of the mass and then you leave. It's fine. But it's not in the Catholic Church. It's like this shit is at 2 p.m. You got to come at 2 p.m. In the Orthodox Church, it's like you come whenever you want, bro, whatever, and you stay for 1 hour and it's fine. And also in the Orthodox Church, the main difference is in the 300s. In the 4th century, they had a big fight. Oh, what's that? No, I'm fine. It's totally fine. I'm cool.
Totally fine. Sun's going down.
Yeah, so it's going up. In
No water. No water.
No, that's fine.
Only. Just tip it.
Just tip it. We gonna do the whole thing?
I mean,
We can do the whole thing. All right.
you're there.
Boom. Boom goes the cannon. Drinks.
I'm pretty sure it's book of science.
That's you haven't seen Sophia the First because boom goes the cannon.
I have seen Sophia the First.
That's Prince James, baby. And so in the like not. I mean, like she goes to private school and is with other kids there. They don't have a tutor and shit. Give me a break. And so in the Orthodox Church, the big fight is over a thing when they were trying to institute like what is Christianity. The Catholics, the Western Church, the Roman Rite, they inserted a phrase into there's the Council of Nicaea. And Constantine was like, "Look, bitches, you need a elevator pitch of Christianity. So when somebody says, what is this Christianity bullshit? What is this, some Jewish guy or I don't even know? You got to give them a paragraph. And so we believe in the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, begotten, not made, one, and forgiven our sins. I'm too drunk to remember it. But it's like basically a paragraph about Christianity, right? And so the argument is that the Orthodox Eastern Rite Christians wrote this thing and everybody voted on it. And then the Catholics, the Westerners, inserted a paragraph, a phrase called the filioque, which was about the Son, and it was about the relationship of Jesus to the God. So God is the Father and Jesus is the Son. But how divine is Jesus? And when is Jesus divine? Is he a man who becomes divine, or is he always divine and becomes a man? And so the Orthodox Christians and the Catholic Christians disagree about the nature of Jesus. And in 300 AD, they fight about this, and it just spirals out forever over 2,000 years. Yes.
Nicholas II.
Who said that?
Me.
Oh, my bad. I'm Karen asked about Orthodox Christianity. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And so, yeah, and so what you could say in a second is initially the difference is very slight, but over time it evolved into a big dispute about the relationship to Christianity. And the big one was that in 1204, the Catholic Crusaders sacked the Orthodox Christian city of Constantinople in the Fourth Crusade, and the Orthodox Christians never forgave them, and it was a huge thing. And the Pope apologized 700 years later in the 1990s for 1204, and it was sort of okay. Yes, it is Constantinople. I will never call it the other name. The name comes from when the Turks were invading Greece in the 1400s. They asked the Greeks, "Where does this road go?" And the Greeks who lived in the Byzantine Empire said it goes to the city, because there's only one city in the world. That shit is Constantinople, the only city that matters, bro. And so they would say in Greek, Istanpolis. It goes to the city, Istanpolis. And so the Turks were like, "Oh, the name of the city is Istanbul. That's what you people are saying. It goes to the city of Istanbul." But the Greeks were not saying that. They were saying that the city is Istanpolis. And the Turks didn't get it. So when they conquered the city in 1453 and they killed Constantine IX, Paleologus, and it was a super sad day, and I cry about it every night. I cry all the time. As you can never recover from it. When they conquered the city, Mehmet II renamed the city from Constantinopolis to the city of Constantine to Istanbul, which is what it's called now. And it's not right. I don't accept that. I call it Constantinople. It is a thing. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. For some people, it hurts me that. Okay. No, I'm sorry. And so yeah, no, it is Constantinople. We don't call it Istanbul. Not in this house. Not in this house. I don't call it that. I don't call it that. I don't even like the current emperor of Turkey. He's a jerk anyway. So whatever. I call his city is Constantinople. Oh my God, we're gonna get. Oh my God, if Hawk is watching, the Turkish girl who wanted to date you is gonna kill me because she was a Gulenist. Anyway, sorry. So anyway, Karen asked about Orthodox Christianity. Bringing it back. So anyway, Nicholas is in this incredibly precarious situation, right? And to wind it back even a little bit, what happens is in 1905, there's this crazy incident involving Japan. Okay, so let's talk about Japan for a second. Nobody knows anything about Japan. Okay, so Japan in the 1500s, Europeans discovered Japan. It was this wild island full of these crazy weirdos and like swords and ninjas and stuff. And they started bringing in Christianity. And what happened is Japan was, all these guys are fighting all the time, these warlords and stuff, right? And a dude united Japan, okay? A warlord united Japan under a single rule. What he did is he imported European weapons, and he killed all his rivals. And then he was assassinated. And his successor killed more of his rivals. And he turned it over to the third guy who took over Japan, right? And so the names, I love the names. Their names were Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Ieyasu Tokugawa. And Tokugawa became shogun, which is like warlord of Japan, dictator of Japan. And so he sealed Japan off from the outside. What? This is for real. This is real. It's fine. It's the anything. What?
That's why you cleared the area.
Yeah. It's fine. I had some. So Tokugawa took over Japan, and he sealed it off from the outside world. And so for like 100 years, Europeans did business to Japan. The Portuguese, for real, did this business where they exported. It's fine. Look, it's Japan.
You're right.
Nailed it. And so for a while, the Portuguese did this business in Japan where they exported. They bought silk in China and they imported it to Japan and they sold it and they brought it back, the silver back to China, and they made more money. But after Tokugawa closed off Japan, nobody knew what happened in Japan for like hundreds of years. It was this completely mysterious country. Yes.
Nicholas II.
Who said that?
Me.
Okay, I'm trying. Damn.
Although there is a question. I want to know how the hell do you know all those names?
That's how.
Good.
Yeah. I read a lot of books. So,
And
okay.
those things.
I know things. I know things.
Drinking,
I know things, right? So anyway, the Europeans were dying to know what was in Japan, what's going on, and so in the 18, I gotta talk about Japan. It will make sense. It will just have faith in me. Okay, so the Europeans, they want to know what's in Japan, and in the 19th century, President Millard Fillmore sends dudes to Japan, and they open up Japan to the outside world. And the Japanese had this kind of like gut check moment. The Japanese are like, whoa, look, we're the Japanese. Our shit is tight. We are the coolest guys on the planet. Our shit is awesome. Our culture is great. And then these Americans show up and they smell like ass and they have ugly hair and their uniforms are shit and they're dumb and they know that you're not the Yamato race. The Yamato race was created when the sun goddess Amaterasu Omikami raised the Okay, it's cool. It's okay, baby. And so the sun goddess Amaterasu Omikami created Japan, but she raised the islands from the bottom of the ocean to help provide a home for the Yamato race, which is the cleanest, purest, most beautiful race in the history of the planet. And yet here are these dumbass Americans, and they got these cannons and shit, and they're blowing shit up. And so the Japanese had this kind of like gut check moment where they're like, "Oh shit, are the Americans really?" And it's a good thing for the Japanese. They have this flexibility where they're like, "Man, maybe there's some shit we don't know, and like maybe this fat guy in the boat with the bo because he drinks milk. Maybe he knows some shit we don't know." And so the Japanese they become modern. They decide that like if you can't beat the Europeans, you got to be like them. And so they become an imperialist country. They become a technical country. They have a revolution. They throw out the emperor, the dictator, and they replace him with the emperor, the Meiji emperor, and they become a country. And so the Russians and the Japanese are fighting over China. And in the 19th century, the Chinese, it's a shit time for the Chinese. I don't like the Chinese. The current Chinese guy is a Winnie the Pooh looking dude who I do not like him. And if you have a Huawei phone, he is listening to this, and if you Xi Jinping, you're stupid. Ban in China, and so a Blizzard will not give me prizes. And so, but anyway, the Chinese are at this bad point in their history, and everybody's carving up their country like a Christmas ham. And the Japanese are in on this shit. The Japanese are the one non-European country. They act like a European country. So the Russians and the Japanese are doing it. They're doing it. They're cutting up China. And the Russians and the Japanese and the Germans and the Belgians and the Americans and the British and the French they're all doing the British, by the way, have a drug cartel for real. A drug cartel in southern China in the Pearl River. They sell opium to Chinese dudes, and then when the Chinese are like, "Why you sell opium to our people?" the British are like, "Shut up, bitch! Buy our opium." And when the British are like, and the Chinese are like, "Damn, that opium it's like a drug," and the British are like, "Shut the fuck up! Buy it." My bad, dog.
Go with the cupcake.
Oh, we go.
I sure hope you didn't drink all four of them.
And so.
I thought it would be pretty.
There goes the prize.
Woo! Okay. So anyway, China is for real is in a bad way, and you can get. I don't like China today. They're not great, but you can get why their leaders never want to go back to this this part of their history. But the Russians and the Japanese and all these other countries are carving up China like a Christmas ham. The Russians and the Japanese get in a fight over
Where did Nicholas II go?
He's the emperor. He's the emperor right now.
Okay.
That's right.
Carving the
Yeah,
ham.
he's the emperor. Yeah, and so
Okay.
the Russians and the Chinese are
Carving what ham?
China. China is the ham. China is
The Chinese are cutting the ham.
no. The Chinese are the ham. They are the ham, and Russia and all the other countries are carving up chunks of the ham and eating it. And the Chinese are like, "Don't do it to us," and the Russians are like, "What about that, bitch?" And whatever. And so the Russians and the Japanese get in a fight over territory in China. And imagine how humiliating it is. It's like your country, and everybody, and the Chinese are like, "What about our country?" And it's like, "Shut up, bitch." And the Russians and the Japanese are fighting over it. And they're fighting over a piece of territory called Port Arthur, which is today is Mukden. It's called Mukden. And by the way, there's a great story. There's a beer you can get. It's called Tsingtao. And Tsingtao is made in China, but it is made because the Germans controlled part of China and they built a brewery. And when the Chinese took it over, they just kept making the beer and they still sell it. It's called Tsingtao. And anyway, having said that, the Russians and the Japanese get in a fight over the access to this kind of territory, right? And so it starts a war, the Russo-Japanese War. And everybody is thinking like, bro, the Japanese are some Asian dudes, okay? They're Asian. when is the last time an Asian beat a European in a war? And the answer is like what? Never? Like, I don't know, like Alexander the Great or some shit? Give me a break with this crap, right? But the Japanese are like, look, we got pro, okay? We got pro. And so they fight a battle on land, and the Japanese win it. And everybody's like, ooh, right? So the Russians are like, all right, we're with the Navy. The Navy's coming out. The Navy's coming out. We're going to send the Navy. We're going to send the Navy. We're going to jack up these Japanese dudes. And it's it. It's it. And Nicholas, he banks like his whole career on this, right? The middle classes, they hate him because he won't provide political reform. The upper classes hate him because his Rasputin is running the government, right? Rasputin, this random weird dude from the woods. And by the way, Rasputin, I got to mention this. I mentioned Rasputin is like, he discovers all of a sudden that because he is friends with the Empress, everybody wants to be friends with him. And he suddenly gets all these people. Everybody wants a favor from Rasputin because they know if he calls up the Empress, she'd give him what he wants, right? And there's a rumor going around that Rasputin has sex with all of the courtesans and all the court ladies in Russia, and it works out. Everybody knows about Rasputin because he has a big penis, and his penis has a strategically located clit-stimulating wart, and everybody talks about it. It's like nobody mentions it. Everybody mentions it. Everybody's talking about it. And so there's these rumors that Rasputin, look, it's his big penis is historically significant because he undermines the Russian monarchy thanks to his sexual depravity, which is, you guys are laughing, but it's for real.
I'm laughing before you got.
No, it's a real. I have history books about that. For real, I have history books that mention this. It is a real thing. Yes, Olivia.
Excellent question.
Excellent question. No, it's fine. Drinks. And so, the important story about this is the Russians decide to send their navy to jack up the Japanese. And again, everybody thinks, look, the Japanese Navy, when you say Japanese Navy, it's like, what, a bunch of dudes in wooden boats and stuff, they have spears and stuff? And the Japanese are like, yeah, okay. And the Russians send their navy, and they have to send it all the way around the whole Africa in the world because the British won't let them use the Suez Canal. And the reason the British won't let them use the Suez Canal is because a week ago, the British had a fishing fleet off of the Dogger Bank, which is like northeast of England, and the Russians sunk it. And the Russians were like, the Russian Navy, they're out of patrol. It's serious. It's serious, guys. And they see some ships, and the captain ships off the port bow, and they're like, oh my God, it's enemy vessels. Open fire! And they blow up a bunch of British fishing vessels. And I'm for real. They blow up fishing vessels. And when they investigate it, what happens is everybody in Britain is super pissed. Like, you just killed a bunch of fishermen. And the Russians are like, well, I mean, like, how did you know? I mean, how do you know if they were fishermen? And it was like, I don't know, the nets on the boats. And it's like, how could you tell? How could it's so complicated. And the British are like, and so as a result, the Russians can't use the Suez Canal. They sail their ships all the way around Africa and the world. And when they get up to Japan, they think they're going to beat these Japanese dudes like a drum, right? Yes.
Karen wants to know if they were drunk.
I mean, yeah. It's the Russians. It's vodka. It's vodka. You got to.
This was brought up of why that was not your drink of choice tonight.
Not
You're going to vodka.
No, if we do vodka, this is over in like 2 minutes. No, it's red wine. It's red wine. Holy crap, vodka? Like, I mean, you ask my friends from college, if we do vodka, I'm going to throw up all over myself.
Who's on your shirt, by the way?
It's Napoleon Bonaparte. This is my main man, Napoleon.
It came up that someone thought it was Edward from Twilight.
Who said that?
Stephanie's mom.
I mean, Stephanie's mom, you were a lovely lady, and your daughter is a great friend of mine, but no, it's not Edward from Twilight. It is Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French, my main man, conquered the Austrians. We're talking about Russia. We'll talk about Napoleon another time. It's next week, or I don't know, whenever. And so,
Depends when we pull his name out of the box.
Is that a nightly thing? I don't think
no, I can't. In this weekly, maybe at best.
No, we are talking about Nick.
No, so when the Russians get to Japan, right? Japanese are there. They get to this place. It's between Japan and China. It's called Tsushima Bay. And what happens is that Russia gets jacked up. 1905. 1905. And so it's a Russo-Japanese war, right? And the Russians sail in and they're like, we're gonna kill some Japanese dudes, am I right? And the Japanese are like, yeah, bro. And the Japanese, by the way, they were like, look, we want the best navy in the world. What do you do when you want the best navy in the world? You call the British and you say, can you help us out? And the British are like, you got money? And the Japanese are like, and you get a navy, right? And the Japanese navy jacks up the Russian navy. Japanese navy sinks every Russian ship, and the Japanese suffer like damage, right? And there, by the way, there's a dude there. His name is Isoroku Yamamoto, and he gets 2 fingers blown off his hand, right? He wears a wooden prosthesis for the rest of his life. Yamamoto is going to plan Pearl Harbor in 1939 and 40, right? And that's a whole other thing, but that's where he starts, right? That's where he starts, right? And so everybody is like, holy shit, the Japanese! They just killed a Russian navy. Like the Japanese are some Asian dudes, and the Japanese, they killed the Russians, and it's a world-shattering event because the Japanese they defeated a Western power at their own game. It turns out Asians are not dumb. You copy the technology, you can do whatever you want. And so for Nicholas, it causes a revolution. Everybody in Russia is like, question: we were supposed to kill some Japanese dudes, and we got our ass kicked. What's up, bro? And Nicholas is like, I don't know, or whatever. And a revolution happens, right? By the way, fun story. How does the Russo-Japanese War end? My main man, Theodore Roosevelt, rides in. Theodore Roosevelt, President of the United States of America, is like, hey, war against civilized country versus civilized country is bad. So what he does is he brokers a peace treaty in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and he settles the Russo-Japanese War, and they give him the Nobel Peace Prize. And because he is a war-making guy, it is ridiculous. But he gets a peace prize for it, and he ends the war, and it's great. Yes.
I want to point out that while you love Teddy Roosevelt for his war-making speech, he's in fact terrible. He's gay.
I mean, why? I mean, like in some ways, yes, but in other ways, no. In other ways, no.
Also refill my glass.
With what? I had all this wine.
There's a cupcake still left.
Oh, what is this?
I wanted you to refill my glass.
Give me the glass, okay. And so, no. Look, we got to talk about Teddy Roosevelt later because, yeah. No,
Okay.
for real.
Squirrel.
No, look, Teddy. No, we got to talk about Teddy Roosevelt later. But he ended the war because he thought that like a civilized country going to war with a civilized country was a bad thing. The purpose of wars is for civilized people to destroy uncivilized people, and that was bad. We were wasting. We was waste, right? So anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, Nicholas has a revolution, and there's a procession in Russia, in St. Petersburg, in the second city of Russia, St. Petersburg. And so everybody gets together, and they say, guys, this shit sucks. Russia sucks. We got to do something. If the Tsar knew how fucked up this was. Ooh, my bad.
Drinks.
If the Tsar knew, he would fix it. He would fix it. And so everybody gets together, and they this guy, Father Gapon, who is the Orthodox priest. He's got a big beard. And they go to the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, and they got the icons, and they're going to pray. And they march to the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, and they say, gosh, Your Majesty, it sucks right now. The economy's bad. The government's bad. We lost the war. Everything's bad. You got to help us. And when they get to the palace, the Tsar isn't even in the palace. His ass is he's on a vacation. I don't even know. And they get to the palace, and the Cossacks, the guards, they're like, look. They're like, holy shit. There's a bunch of fucking guys outside. What do we do? They're like, it's poor people? Shoot them. And so the Cossacks get the rifles, and they go out there and like, y'all get out of here. And when nobody leaves, they're like, all right, and they kill all of the peasants. They shot an 11-year-old girl, and they killed her. And they shot all these people. It's Bloody Sunday. It was called Bloody Sunday. It's 1905. They called Bloody Sunday, and they killed all these people. And Father Gapon was this for real devout Orthodox priest, And he thought if the Tsar just knew that things were this bad, he knows us. He knows us, right? He's supposed to. And when they shot the girl, Father Gapon grabbed her body, and he said, he rocked back and forth. He was crying. He said, "There is no Tsar. There's no Tsar." And so Nicholas's days were numbered with that. There was a revolution in 1905, and Nicholas conceded. He said, "All right, I guess I got to have a parliament. I guess I got to have a parliament." So we have a parliament. It's called the Duma. And Nicholas allows the Duma to be created. We're gonna have voting. Everybody's gonna vote. You're gonna vote. You're gonna vote. You're gonna vote. Turns out, just kidding. No, the vote doesn't matter. I don't care. And he allows the Duma to be created, but then immediately says, "I don't give a shit what you say. What do you want? I don't care." And he immediately goes back on the whole Orthodox thing. The Duma, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? And so going into World War I, Nicholas is in this incredibly unstable position. The upper classes hate Rasputin. They think, look, you prostituted yourself in front of this holy man, is sleeping his way through the government. He's pulling the strings of the queen, who's telling you what to do. The middle classes say, look, I'm not a dumbass. I've been educated, and you won't let me vote. And the lower classes think, all I want is bread. I want to work. I want to make money. And Nicholas can't provide it. The economy in Russia is terrible. And everybody thinks, okay, at least we went to war with the Japanese and beat them. Just kidding, we got our ass kicked. And so then comes World War I, right? And then comes World War I. And this is real talk now. Real talk. The Austrian Emperor. What?
Are you gonna fall over?
No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine.
It's a moment.
I'm fine.
You need some water?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I drink all stairs, but.
Mm-mm. I'm fine. I'm fine. No, I'm good. And so, does anybody have a question?
They're talking about Bloody Sundays and treacherous Tuesdays and woeful Wednesdays.
Yeah.
There's so many bloody Sundays.
It's because there's an Irish one too. There's an Irish one too, because Bono has a song where he sang about Bloody Sunday, and the IRA protested. The British shot a bunch of dudes in Bloody Sunday. And yeah, it's just weird that the massacres always fall on a Sunday. Y'all are laughing at us. What's up? What's up? No, no, it's cool.
Definitely gives you credibility for sure. Thanks, Sophie. Is that what Sophie
Yeah. um, it's way better doing this in front of an audience.
All right, girls, I need you not to be in the kitchen.
You guys had okay. So, does anyone else have any questions? Because we're about to start World War I, and it's going to get real. It's going to get real.
It's going down for real.
It's for real. For real.
Who wants to know about Fairy Barbie?
Fairy Barbie. I mean, she's not involved with this. This is a goddamn mess. She's better than this. All right.
Carrie Alexandra, if there wasn't a civil rights march called Bloody Sunday.
Yeah, there was. I want to say, I don't know. Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma was that. I don't. That might have been Sunday where they shot and they shot the tear gas and stuff. But yeah, that might have been Sunday. There was no, and it's like a meme, like for whatever reason. For every reason, it's like everybody's like, let's protest on a Sunday, and that's the day everyone's like, let's hit them with the rifle, and then it's like Bloody Sunday, right? It rhymes because like whatever Bloody Tuesday is the thing, but the original Bloody Sunday that I know of is in Russia in 1905 with Father Gapon and the protesters, where they go to the Tsar, the Tsaride Palace in St. Petersburg, and and again, the tragedy of this is they think that the Tsar doesn't know anything about this. And so if we just go to him and we just say, please, like you don't know, if you just help us. And the Tsar, he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit at all. And the Cossacks are like, well, we don't know. So the Tsar would probably tell us to shoot these people. So like, boom. And they kill a bunch of people. And like a kid, they killed a little girl. Right? So anyway, World War I happens. And World War I is happening. And what happens is, to make a long story short, and this is for real, a Serbian assassin in Austria kills the Austrian heir to the throne which sparks a fight between the Austrians, the Russians, and the French, which pulls in the British, and World War One starts, right? And the Russians are involved.
People what they want.
What's that? It's Fairy Barbie. Boom.
Very Barbie for president.
Yeah, Sig Heil, Fairy Barbie. I shouldn't have said that.
Drinks.
Drinks. And so drinks. Boom. And so World War One starts. And the thing about World War One, you got to get Sarah. Hey, sweetie. Here's Fairy Barbie for you. Go get. It's fine. Go on out of the photo. And so the thing you got to get about Olivia, come on. Okay. The thing about World War One you got to get is that everybody thought this is the shit where I can fix my problems. Germany, Britain, France, Russia, Austria. Everybody thought, oh man, a war. This is great. I'm gonna win this shit. I'm gonna crush my opponents. I'm gonna take it all the way to the part, and I'm just gonna win, right? And Nicholas was thinking, he was like, hey guys, some people don't like me because my wife is a bitch. She's in bed with, like, metaphorically, with a Russian like wacko from the woods or whatever, Rasputin, this guy with the wart on his dick that everybody likes. Look, apparently it was a big thing. All the noble ladies were talking about, like, did you sleep with the guy with the wart on his dick? Because it was for real. Who hasn't slept with the guy with the wart on his dick? Am I right?
Wishes and more penis to dick. Okay.
Look, at the end of the day, what are we all talking about? Getting laid. I'm going to be honest with you. If you think of men as starting 90% of history, what do men really want at the end of the day? To get laid. That's all they want. And so what is all of history? What did Julius Caesar conquer Gaul for? To get laid. To go back to Rome and be like, conquer Gaul, who wants a piece of it? Yeah.
Karen wants to know if they thought God wanted them to win.
Oh, everybody. And the crazy thing is, like, Lincoln in the Civil War pointed out, he was like, hey, the North thinks that God wants the North to win, but the South, they're not a bunch of atheists. They think that God wants them to win too. And so the crazy thing is, everybody on every side of every war in every part of history, if you ask them, do you think God wants you to win in his conquest of Central Asia, Genghis Khan is going to be like, look, Tengri told me to kill the infidels, so I'm going to do it. And if you go to Omar in the 600s, and you're like, Omar, you're the successor to Muhammad. Do you think Muhammad and Allah want you to conquer? He's like, yeah, Muhammad wants me and Allah wants me to conquer Baghdad. We're going to do it. And if you go to, like, I don't know, like An Lushan in like 800s China, An Lushan is going to be like, yeah, look, I talked to heaven, and heaven told me, kill me some Tang Dynasty bitches. And I'm going to do it because they told me to. And if you go to World War One, everybody is like, look, God told us to kill French people, and we are going to do it right now for God. And nobody ever says, well, we're atheists, so I don't care. Even Stalin in World War II, even Stalin said that, Stalin was an atheist, and there was the campaign for the militant godless, where we had to crush Christianity for the benefit of the new Soviet man, right? Because Marx said that religion is the opiate of the masses. And even Stalin in World War II was like, all right, Hitler invaded Russia, so what we're going to do is we're going to bury this atheist shit. I'm going to bring up the Orthodox Christianity. God wants you to fight for Stalin and Russia against the fascism. And so everybody thinks God is on their side. And so when you go to Russia and the Tsar, there was a whole thing in the education system about orthodoxy, autocracy, nationality. We had to support the Orthodox Church, the Tsar, and the Russian people. The Russian people. We had to support, so it's August of 1914. Everybody's going to war. Right? Britain, France, Germany, Austria, Russia, everybody's going to war. And nobody would say that God was not on their side. Nobody was saying that God was not their friend. And so, yeah, Nicholas was, if you ask Nicholas, Tsar Nicholas, Your Majesty, I'm sorry, we got kid action. If you said, Nicholas, bro, what's going to make you win? Nicholas would say, of course, God. Of course, God, because we're right. We're right. God wants us to win. right? Of course, everybody said that. Everybody, and to be fair, everybody in the history of the universe said that. If you go back to like ancient Greece, Alexander was not like, hey, nobody cares. He's like, no, obviously Apollo wants me to kick Persian ass. Yeah.
Oh, we're about to get to World War
I mean, it's a big deal. I'm sorry.
I. Oh no.
Come at me with this. I'm gonna
There's the Trump can.
look. I can drink better than he can. Look,
Walk down a ramp.
I don't have to be all like. I'm gonna drink this. I'm gonna drink this bottle. There's not even that much left. So anyway, World War I starts, and the problem with World War I for Nicholas is it is an acid test for his regime. At the end of the day, nobody gives a shit about your tax policy. They give a shit about if you can win a war. Can you kill Germans? Can you kill Germans? Because if you can't kill Germans, what the fuck are you doing here? Well, I mean, like, I love the Germans. I love the Germans. But, like, let's be real. The Germans, like, they have done some shit. Am I right? They have the mustaches, yes. The schnitzel, yes. The beer, yes. The anti-Semitism, no. Not so much. Not so much. Not so much. Yiffy, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So anyway, World War I starts, and the Russians, what do they get? What do they get? What do they get? They get fucked. That's what they get. And the only thing the Russians have is that's fine, that's fine. The only thing the Russians have is numbers. They got this seemingly inexhaustible supply of soldiers, right? And they keep getting their ass kicked. And the only thing that saves them from total defeat is the British and the French. They managed to put up a superior fight. And then the Americans come. Woodrow Wilson. Let's talk about Woodrow Wilson. He is a racist, right? Today at Princeton University said they're going to take Woodrow Wilson's name off the Princeton University Woodrow Wilson School of International Relations. And so all I can say is, Woodrow Wilson, you are a racist asshole. I hope you rot in hell. You're the worst. I hate you. I hate you. Theodore Roosevelt forever. Eat a bag of dicks. Eat a big bag of dicks because you're the worst, right? And I mean, when I was in high school, we had the Fellowship of the Christian Athlete, which is a club he started. FCA. He started that shit at Princeton. And I was like, give me a break. All these jocks are all like, I'm a jock and I'm a Christian. And it's like, I don't, what is that? Anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway. No, I'm fine.
Me too.
Okay, cool. So anyway, so in 1917, World War I is not going so well. It started in 1914. It's 1917. We have not won if we're the Russians. And so, yes. I mean, like, Andrew Jackson. Okay, I hate Andrew Jackson because he beat my boy John Quincy Adams in an election, and I love John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams for life, right? But on the other hand, what John Quincy Adams for life? He was not. He was.
Only committed genocide.
Look, he committed genocide, and a dude on the Capitol steps. Yeah, he came up to Jackson and pulled a gun, and Jackson beat the shit out of him. And Jackson was like, fuck you. You assassinate me, I'll send you to the hospital. How do you like that? And Jackson would not take. Nicholas was like, oh, I can't make a decision. It's so complicated. I don't know what to do. Jackson was like, let's ride. Am I right? And so, no, like Jackson was a badass. Like, I don't like Jackson. He was a racist, but he was a badass. You cannot deny that. Yeah. Like, look, only battle of War of 1812 that America won, Jackson fought that battle. He led that battle. They shot the British general in New Orleans. They shot the British general in the face. The British general was like, these Americans aren't going to be able to do a goddamn thing. And Jackson was like, what's that? Boom. And the British general was like, everyone attack. And so, yeah. And so Jackson is a lot of things. He's a racist. He's a dumbass. He's a populist. He's a crazy slave-owning Democrat. But Jackson is a badass. Nicholas II. Jackson would whip Nicholas II in a New York minute, right? I'm not going to lie to you. But so it's 1917, and you're Nicholas II, and you're saying to your generals, "Why can't we win this war?" And the generals are like, "Well, Your Majesty, situation has turned against us in a difficult way. The Germans have proven to be a superior foe, and the Austrians have marshaled a large amount of their resources. And Nicholas can't figure out why. So Nicholas makes a wonderful decision. Wonderful, I mean, and the decision is he fires his commanders. He fires the generals. And Nicholas says, I'll fire the generals. I'll take command. I will appoint myself sole commander of the Russian general forces, the Russian general staff. And all the generals tell Nicholas, they say, Nicholas, bro, if the generals are morons and lose, you can blame them. You can say, look, I hired you to kill Germans. You failed. Well, you're fired. But if you put yourself in charge, then there's nobody to blame when you fail. And Nicholas is like, I'm sorry, I can't hear what you said exactly. So anyway, whatever. So Nicholas appoints himself high command, and he launches a series of attacks on the Germans. And the Germans, they kick his fucking ass, right? They kick his ass. And what I'm gonna be crude, but
Hey, the kids all went upstairs. Oh god.
the Germans, they push his ship, and they fight a battle called Tannenberg. And the guy in charge of Tannenberg is a guy named Ludendorff, General von Ludendorff. Ludendorff has a fucking mustache. He's German. He knows his shit. Well, I mean, not like he's a Nazi later, but it's like a whole thing. Anyway, Ludendorff, he bends Nicholas over the table, and he's like, "Pow, I own you." And Nicholas loses bad. And by 1918, the Russian army is, or by 1917, the Russian army is in full collapse, right? And so what happens in 1917? Nicholas is forced to confront the reality that he might not be able to run the war anymore. The Russians might have fought World War I and lose millions of dollars, millions of men, soldiers, it's all gone. And so the Germans are like, they got a guy. The guy is named Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov. He goes by the nickname Lenin. Lenin, his brother tried to assassinate Nicholas's dad, and they executed him for it. They caught his ass and they hung him. His mom wrote a letter and was like, "Oh, please don't execute my son. He didn't do anything wrong." And the Tsar was like, and they hung his brother. Yeah. Yeah. No, they said Niet. They were like, Niet, bitch, your son is a fucking criminal. Bye. And so Lenin, he got caught up in this shit too. So he fled to Switzerland, right? He goes with his wife, Natalia Kurupskaya is her name. Kurupskaya. And so they go to Switzerland. And they like, Switzerland is expensive and the food fucking sucks. So they go to England. And they, nah, that's what they said. I mean, whatever. And so they go to, what's that? What? Their opinion, not my opinion. So go to England, and they're like, England is all right because you got freedom of speech. And they, for real, Lenin and his wife go to Speaker Square, and I think it's like in Grosvenor Square in the park in London. And they for real, they have a free speech area where you can say whatever you want. And the British police are like, no, normally you can't say shit about the monarch, but if you're on the box in Speaker Square, you can say whatever the fuck you want. It's Hyde Park. And you're right, it's Hyde Park. And Lenin is like astounded because in Russia you don't have any freedom. They censor your shit. They look at your mail. They interrogate your family. It's informants and shit. And they go to Hyde Park, and for real, Lenin and his wife are like scared. They hear a guy get up on the stage and say, "Everyone should be a vegetarian," and they're like, "Well, I mean, like whatever." And the next guy is like, "We should shoot the British monarch and their family and hang them because monarchies are bad." And Lenin is like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And everybody's like, "Nah, bro, the British police don't care about anything you say." And Lenin and his wife, they never had freedom of speech. So anyway, if you ask Natalia Kurupskaya, she says, England, the food is the worst. So they go to Germany for a while, and they go to Switzerland too. And when the Germans, in World War I, with the Germans, the Russians are on the ropes. They lost these battles. They get screwed. And so what they do is the Germans come to Natalia Kurskaya and Lenin, and they're like, "Hey, bro, what if you got a oh my bad. What if you got a ticket to Russia and we didn't ask about what you did?" And Lenin is like, So they send his ass to St. Petersburg, and he gets smuggled into the revolutionary underground. He's got buddies, he's got contacts. He was editing newspapers, so he knows people. And so then what happens is in late 1917, the Russians have failed so bad. Nicholas has appointed himself sole commander of the Russian armies and failed. So the prestige of the entire monarchy is on the ropes, right? The entire thing is on the ropes. So what happens? What happens is Nicholas comes to his wife and he says, I can't, no one will support me, right? I failed. And so he resigns. He abdicates the throne. And he abdicates the throne. And he's going to turn it over to his brother, the Grand Duke of Moscow. And his wife is a crazy conspiracy theorist. And she says, all of this is a plot to get your brother on the throne.
Whose brother?
Nicholas's brother on the throne. And of course, you want to be like, and when she calls him, you want to be like, the whole World War I is a plot to get Nicholas's brother on the throne. Like a Serbian was assassinating an Austrian archduke on in Bosnia in Sarajevo, and the answer is no. You crazy bitch. You crazy. Yes,
I have heard worse conspiracies.
that's true. But she for real believes this. She for real believes this. She Alexandra, the empress, the czarina, the empress of Russia, the wife of Nicholas. Right? She believes this.
I did, yes, the wife.
The wife, no, it's Nicholas and Alexandra, and then the four daughters, Otma and Alexei, Olga, Titania, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei. And so she for real believes that this is a conspiracy to put the Grand Duke of Moscow on the throne. And it's like, for real? You think that Nicholas somebody started World War I to screw over your husband? Are you for real right now? But anyway, he passes over his brother, and he puts a guy named Alexander Kerensky on the throne. Alexander Kerensky. Kerensky takes over the government, and they abolish the monarchy. They say, okay, we're going to have a democracy in Russia. Everybody's going to vote. And Lenin is smuggled into the country by the Germans. The Germans put Lenin on a train. And they put him on a train and say, all right, Lenin, look, this is the deal. You go fuck up Germany, and we never talk about it. We don't talk about it. You don't talk about it. You don't come here. And Lenin is like, so they put him on a train, and they lock that shit from the outside. They put him on a train, and they lock the doors, and they send him to St. Petersburg, to Finland Station. Finland Station is the last railroad station in the Trans-Siberian Railway that goes from Vladivostok all the way to Finland, all the way to Helsinki, Finland. And they send him to St. Petersburg, and he goes there, and they let him out in St. Petersburg, and he disappears. And then, so at the same time Lenin is sneaking into the country, Nicholas resigns the throne. He says, okay, I can't win the war, right? I'm not going to win the war. I'll resign. I'll put this other guy, Kerensky, in the throne. I'll put him in charge of the government. He'll create a democracy. And Lenin is like, and so within a couple months, Lenin and his buddies have taken over. They stage a revolution, and they take over the government. Yes.
Karen wants to know if he could have avoided having to abdicate if he had it.
Yes. That's it. That's exactly it, Karen. If beep 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 beep. If I'm the emperor and I'm a moron, it doesn't matter. If I pick a general and I say, you're in charge, general, and the general wins, I say, aren't I super smart for picking this dude? He is so smart. I'm so smart. But if the general fails, I say, hey, the general's a moron. Who could have known? He seems smart to me. He interviewed well. So I'm picking a new general. It's you. He interviewed, okay? It's you. But and for real, that's what the general said. They say, Your Majesty, look, if you take sole command of the Russian army and you suck out loud, like you suck like the Jaguars suck, right?
Oh.
Only I can say that. If you are not a Jaguars fan, you cannot say that. But only I can. But if you suck like that, no one who can be blamed but you. You like and think about it. If you're the emperor and you take sole command of the army and the army loses, who can we blame but you, right? Like you took command. And so when Nicholas takes command in 1917 and he loses, and the battle is called Tannenberg, and Ludendorff he crushes the Russians at Tannenberg. Tannenberg is named for a 15th century battle where the Knights Templar fought against the Russians, and the Knights Templar lost, and the the Knights Templar they fought on a frozen lake, and the Knights Templar rode out with their heavy plate mail and their swords and shit and their Christianity, and the pagan Russians fought. Alexander Nevsky was the prince, and they fought for a while, and the ice broke, and all of the Russians escaped because when the ice broke on the frozen lake, the Russians swam away. They were like, "Fuck that, we swim away." And the Knights Templar had the plate mail, and they drowned. They drowned. And so when Ludendorff won the battle in 1917, he called it Tannenberg because he was like, "Hey, fuck you, Russia. We won the battle at Tannenberg.
Drinks.
We win." Right? Drinks. Oh, I'll get you in a second.
Okay, drinks.
What's up, Dara?
Jared wants you to point out they had insufficient alone.
Yeah, no. I mean, at this point, if you're the Russian soldiers, you are, like, imagine knowing you're in the Russian army and they're like, "Hey, welcome to the Russian army. Get ready to die." And for real, the Russian army issued weapons to 50% of the soldiers. They say, "Hey, here's the gun and the ammo. Here's the ammo. And when the soldier with the ammo, when the soldier with the gun dies, you collect the gun and kill the German." And imagine being the guy that gets the bullets and no gun, and you're like, "I guess I follow this guy, and he dies, and I pick up his gun." And they're like, "No, that's exactly right." And you're like, "For real?" And they're like, "You'll be fine. It's gonna be great." And that's how the Russian army was in 1917. It was completely fucked. Yeah.
Stephanie said she didn't know that. Yeah, it was a
Oh yeah. No, everybody justified everything with Christianity. Everybody justified everything.
I did.
Um,
And then
nobody ever said that nobody ever goes to war saying this is a godless, amoral universe. Everybody justifies their war with Christianity. Everybody, yeah. Going back to the Byzantine emperors, the Roman emperors, everybody says no. Like, oh yeah, no, like Christianity is the reason we're fighting this war. And Jesus protects us and stuff. No, I'm good. I don't think I'm physically able.
No, give me that. No, give me that.
no, let him finish it. There's nothing left. Let him finish.
You don't have to clean up the vomit.
No.
I'm fine. Everything's fine. We're all
I
fine.
promise nothing.
Yeah, Jared says it worked for Jude Law.
Jude Law?
After?
Jude Law? What the fuck is he talking about? Also, shout out to my hard bud.
Terrified, Greg.
Shout out to my hard bud who is here right now. Thank you. Well, for me and for my homies, yeah. I'm not going to pour it on the floor, but I'm going to drink it.
Just cleaned the floor the other day.
Yeah, so no. No. So it's 1917, and the Russians lose, and Nicholas abdicates, and it's total chaos. They don't. Nobody knows what to do. So Kerensky ends up in charge, Alexander Kerensky, and he ends up in this transitional government, which is code for "fuck you." And what happens is Lenin and his buddies drinks. Lenin and his buddies end up in charge, and they no Lenin for real Lenin. John Lennon is I don't like John Lennon. He's kind of a douche nozzle. I mean, if you're in a band and Yoko Ono has the power to break you up, how great were you anyway? Like Yoko, what's that?
We're about to get so much hate now.
5 strongly agree. I don't like the Beatles.
But you digress, Nicholas.
And Nicholas.
Jared says enemies at the gate. They had guns and bullets distribution team in Stalingrad.
Well, Stalingrad. I mean, bro, you're talking about 1942.
We're not to 1940.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. Stalingrad is a whole other thing. Yeah. Yeah, Enemies at the Gates is was a book about Stalingrad, and then they made it into a movie, which like Jude Law and then Harris and stuff about Stalingrad. I'm sorry, dear. What's that?
I said you still look like you're about to fall down.
I'm fine. No, it's fine. So it's 1917. Nicholas abdicates. Kerensky takes control, and within basically, to make a long story short, within basically a hot minute, Lenin is in charge. The communists are the Bolsheviks. Yes.
But Lenin's name is really Lenin. Did you speak Vladimir something?
No, his name is Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, and he took the name Lenin because he was wanted by the cops. And Vladimir. Yeah, Lenin was like an alias, like a fake name that you take, right?
Like Cher.
I don't know. Is Cher's real name Cher? Is her name like Susan Cher? Like Lady Gaga? Yeah, her name is Stephanie Lynn Germanotta. Yeah, I know Lady Gaga's name is Stephanie Germanotta, and she took Lady Gaga as a fake name. So yeah, like Lenin is like a fake name that he uses to avoid the police, right? No, Vladimir Lenin's name is Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, but he calls himself Lenin because the police don't know that name.
Her name's Sherilyn.
So it's kind of close, right? But anyway,
Sherilyn Stark.
yeah, Sarkisian sounds Armenian. Weirdly, what's her name? Kim Kardashian testified in front of the Senate about the Armenian genocide. And she was like, "Hey, shouldn't we be upset that Armenians got massacred?" And everybody was like, "Well, on the one hand, no, you're Kim Kardashian, but on the other hand, like, yeah, no, for real, like, you have a good point." Because everybody likes Turkey, except lately we don't actually like Turkey. Fuck Turkey. Yeah, they just still don't. Yeah, but like for real, the Turks actually shot like 1 million Armenians. Yeah. What?
Bring back.
Come back. Okay, so Nicholas II is out, and Kerensky's in, and Lenin takes power. And the reason Lenin takes power, to make a long story short, is his shit is organized. He's got like a network of people, right? And Lenin is a communist, and the Bolsheviks, which is Lenin's faction in the Russian Communist Party, they believe that communism happens when a majority of the workers get fed up and organize. Well, Lenin thinks that if a majority of the workers are not organized, you can make that happen by violence and organization. You can have a dedicated cadre of revolutionaries that can force revolution out. If Anila Lahiri is still watching, she knows what I'm talking about because she's into Che Guevara and shit. She knows what I'm talking about. No, she's into this stuff. And so what happens is Lenin takes over, and the Russians make a peace with the Germans. And it's 1917, so the Americans are just getting into the war. Woodrow Wilson is just getting into the war. Britain and France are still in the war, and everybody's thinking, we're in it to win it. And the Russians are like, well, like we lost, we're out, and they sign a peace treaty with the Germans. And the peace treaty is signed at a town called Brest-Litovsk. And that's the peace treaty is called Brest-Litovsk. And Lenin, he admits the peace treaty fucking sucks. They have to give up a huge chunk of Russian territory. But Lenin says that the Bolsheviks, the communists, Bolshevik in Russian means majority. And actually, Lenin's faction in Russia is the minority party, but they win by calling themselves the majority party. I'm fine. What are you guys laughing at?
You said breast.
I mean, it is breast. It is.
Apparently they're 12.
Yeah. No, that's the town where they sign it. Okay. Look, it's the town where they sign it. I did the nipple thing, so we can all laugh. Yeah, Greg. I know we touched him. Darren knows what I'm talking about. Darren knows. It's fine. And so anyway, that's fine. So they sign a peace treaty, and it's fucking humiliating. The Russians surrender like hundreds of thousands of square miles to the Germans. And why do they do it? Lenin says, look, I took over Russia, and what the working class wants is two things. They want peace, and they want bread. They want peace and bread. And what Lenin means is they want no World War I and economic growth, right? And so he gives it to him. He says, look, if we get fucked by the Germans, we get an end of World War I, and we get economic growth, right? And that's what everybody wants.
Oh no, we're so into R.
Put that out of the water.
R17, NC-17, baby.
No NC-17. We've talked about penises, but we haven't shown them. Keep that shirt.
Not yet.
No.
No, it's fine. Later, we'll do it. And so Lenin signs this peace treaty and gets Russia out of the war. And by the way, if you are France and America and England, you were like, hey, wait a minute, I thought we were in this shit together. And Russia's like, well, like, fuck you, whatever, I don't give a shit. And so Russia bails, and America, Britain, and France fight the war, and Russia's out. And so, so why does Russia do this? Well, because Lenin thinks, look, I got two objectives: end the war, but also preserve communism, which Lenin is about to do, right? Lenin's about to do. And so that's what the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk is about, is preserving communism. Lenin accepts the defeat in order to save communism in Russia, right? And so Having said that, what happens to Nicholas, right? He goes into exile. The war ends, right? He goes into exile. He goes to a city called Yekaterinburg, which is located about, it's like a couple hundred miles east of Moscow. It's rural. What's that? 500 kilometers. Kilometers. What the fuck
We're
is it?
runners.
Yeah, I don't know the fuck is this shit. So they go to this city called Yekaterinburg, and they take it's Nicholas, it's Alexandra, it's Otma, it's Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei, and they bring the sailor, the Russian sailor who is Alexei's bro, like his like nurse, his like buddy. No, it's like his like nanny.
Like his valet.
Yeah, his valet is a good word because he's like a teenager, right? So
Whipping
they
boy.
no, it's like more like companion. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, it's not like a gay thing. No, it's like he's like his nurse. He's like his nurse. I'm sorry, my bad. So they go to Yekaterinburg and they go into exile. And there's a great picture of Nicholas you can find on like Wikipedia where he's like in the woods, like sitting with a bunch of guards behind him that are communists with like rifles. And so Lenin,
How do you know they're communists? Is there a garb or symbol?
well, they're dressed like communists in the militia uniforms, and
The
they
Communist Manifesto has been.
yeah, and then they like the Russians, like they're all communists have taken over the country. What happened actually is the Russians created these councils of workers in all the industries and armies and shit. And the workers' councils were called Soviets, which is where the Soviet Union comes from. And actually, a horrible thing in 1918, in 1917, was the workers' councils were like, we don't want to go to war anymore. So when the officers say you have to attack the Germans, the councilors are like, we voted, and we're not going to do that. And the officer's like, no, you have to, like the czar said, and the counselor's like, there's 10 of us and one of you, so you want to fight about it? And the officer's like, you know what? It's cool. You guys don't have to go to war. And so the Russian army basically voted to stop fighting World War One. They basically voted by majority that they didn't want to fight World War One anymore. And every industry had this. Every industry, the factories and the farmers and stuff all voted to become these councils. And so one of these councils there in Yekaterinburg, and Nicholas he thinks he has this dumbass idea that he's going to go to fucking like Canada or something. He's going to go to Britain. His grandmother is from Britain. His grandmother-in-law, Victoria. He's related to the King of England, Edward the Seventh, I think, is sixth. I think he's going to go and he's going to go to exile. They're going to let him go. And Lenin knows that you can't let this guy live, right? You can't have communism in Russia if the heir to the throne is hanging out in Britain, ready to come back, right? So what happens? What happens is that Lenin sends a letter to the communists in Ekaterinburg. He's like, you got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. You got to do what's important. And so the communists have a trial, and they decide that Nicholas is guilty of crimes punishable by death. Yeah.
Chris wants to know if the council granted him the right.
Nicholas? He's a master of shit. He's a master of
Also, it was pointed out the reason why he has to have a nurse is because he's weak because of hemophilia.
hemophilia. Yeah, no, they had a guy, a sailor.
Second had chemo?
No, his son, his kid. Nicholas had half of the genes for hemophilia, and Victoria had them, and they go through. Some of them go through the female line, and Victoria gave them to Alexandra. Alexandra and Nicholas together, hemophiliac kid Nicholas. Yeah.
And that Nicholas the third?
No, the Nicholas's son was Alexei, who would be Alexander the fourth, would have been if he'd been Tsar, and so Nicholas's family had half of the genes for hemophilia, right? And some of them go through the male line. Victoria had half of the genes.
Who the hell is Victoria?
English queen, 19th century. Her,
Did you do a history major? Yeah, in 2005.
I-
Introduced law
yeah.
school.
No. Victoria. Remember. Victoria had a bunch of kids,
Okay.
and one of her kids had a daughter, Nicholas's wife, and so
What are we talking about Victoria?
half of the genes for hemophilia go on the female line, the XY. They go on the X. They went from Victoria to the Princess of Hesse, and they go from the Princess of Hesse to Alexandra. Alexandra's mom. Nicholas's grandmother, mother-in-law. Yeah.
And so, but it went to Alexandria.
Look, so okay. So chromosomes, XY, XX is woman, XY is man, right?
That's very, very narrow.
So Victoria had some of the genes for hemophilia. Nicholas's family had some of the genes, right? Victoria had a daughter. She got some of the genes. Victoria's daughter had a daughter who married.
No, I know Victoria, or Victoria's daughter. It's Alexandra.
It's Victoria's mom. No, sorry. Queen Victoria of England, 19th century, had a daughter who was the Princess of Hesse. That princess had a daughter that was Alexandra, Nicholas's wife.
The Princess of Hesse was no real.
I don't know her name. It's like Caroline or something. But no. But remember, Victoria married all of her daughters to royal families, and she seeded the British out all over the Europe, right? So the British Queen Victoria's grandson was King of England. His cousin was German emperor. His cousin was Russian emperor. His cousin was Danish king. They were married to everybody. They're married. They're all related because Queen Victoria had like 37 kids, and she married them all over the fucking place. Yeah, no, she had like 9 kids, and they married them all over the place. And so Nicholas's wife was the granddaughter of Victoria, right? And she got hemophilia, half of it from Victoria, and Nicholas had half of it, and their son had hemophilia.
And the son's name is?
Alexei. And he could treat Nicholas's son, Alexei. He could. We'll get one.
We're not
Yeah, we're not.
there yet.
So no. You're in Yekaterinburg.
Hamburg.
Yekaterinburg. It's a city in eastern Russia. Yekaterinburg. It's called. It's
Like Katerina.
yes. Okay.
You can see I've recycled a bottle over there. Let's get going. Circling.
No. We're getting to the end.
Going down.
Where sun goes down. Sun gonna bank.
Going down.
No. So they're in Yekaterinburg. It's 1918, and
We're nowhere near World War One.
it's over. It's over. It's over. It's over. Yeah.
But
1918.
there was a statement made that World War One could not be World War One because they did not predict World War Two.
No, at the time it was called the Great War. Yeah, it's called the Great War. So it's 1918. It's the spring. World War One is ending, and Lenin sends the Communist Council in Yekaterinburg a letter, and he's like, "Hey, y'all." He's like, "You can do what you want with the Tsar, with Nicholas. You can do what you want. You can do what you." And what is the Communist Council? They put him on trial, and they find him guilty. And Nicholas and his family, they find him guilty, and they put him on trial, and they find him guilty, and they take it's like June 1918. It's like June 1918. They take Nicholas and Alexandra, and they take Otma, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, Alexei, the Cossack nurse, the sailor who was like his attendant. They take him into the basement, and they get submachine guns, and they murdered them. They killed them all. They killed all of them. We'll get to it. We'll talk about it. And they killed all of them. They killed the mother, the father, the 5 kids, and the nurse.
Why kill the nurse?
He was there, and in retrospect, why did Lenin do this? Lenin. Yeah, why did Lenin? No, Lenin. Why did Lenin do it? Did Lenin do it? Was it okay to kill kids? No. But Lenin knew that as long as a member of the Romanov royal family lived, they could come back, right? So you had to make a clean break. If a new way to organize humanity was gonna exist, you had to make a clean break. You had to kill the Romanovs. And so for many years there was a theory that Anastasia Romanov lived and she got away. And there's a movie about it. There's a Disney movie about it. It's animated. It's a Fox. It's a Fox movie about it. It's animated. Yeah. Well, everything's Disney now. This channel got bought by Disney for $1 million. And so Anastasia lived, but it turns out no. There was a lady in Canada who claimed that she was the Anastasia, and they did a DNA in her, and that she should be related to the Queen of England,
Which one? The current?
Elizabeth too. And they did DNA, and she wasn't. And so the Romanovs are dead. They're
Local history question. Anastasia Island. Oh, goes to St. Augustine. Who's that named after? Is it Russian Anastasia or some other Anastasia?
somebody else. Yeah. Are there any questions? I'm pretty drunk and I feel bad.
No, I think you're okay.
There was a discussion of the Spanish flu starting and the failure of people to wear masks.
I feel like I'm going to throw up, so I'm going to have to call it a night.
Okay, fair enough. So that is Professor Matt is drunk. If you enjoyed it and you feel like contributing to us, we are on PayPal at paypal.me/ProfessMattIsDrunk and on Cash App at ProfMattIsDrunk. So have a good night. We'll see you next week. Hopefully Matt doesn't die.
Everybody brings your mommy into the pink.
Oh God.
Oh God, I need a couch.
Mommy is
Oh, as much as we drink, I